Hello, good evening. Welcome to Brothers of MGTOW. I be your host, a brother of MGTOW, and I think this is episode 20. Okay, so I'm just gonna do another MGTOW Thoughts episode. I'll freestyle it a bit. I sort of want to start off by talking about sort of the recent events regarding sort of the whole debacle with the screening of the Red Pill movie, sort of directed by a feminist, Cassie J, someone who I admire a bit now. So if you're not familiar with the Cassie J story, she's one of those hardcore feminists. Then she decided, you know what, I'm going to hear the other side of the story. And through hearing the other side of the story, she's now become this, she's sort of disillusioned with the whole feminist movement. So she says she's still a feminist, and she's not an MRA, but she's sort of dissociated herself from the feminist movement, and she's sort of become someone like me, sort of someone who's an MRA sympathizer, someone who understands the plights of their movement, which is a good start. I think it's a good start because at the end of the day, when you search for truth, you're always going. It's always going to be a painful reality, no matter what. How you take it will ultimately shape who you will be, in a sense. Okay. So I commend Cassie J for making this movie, and sort of it does feature a lot of MRA people. I know this is a MGTOW channel, but I do like to talk about sort of things that are sympathetic to my cause in a way. Although I've sort of now I'm on the track to being sort of a MGTOW sympathizer in a way. Although I do understand the massive problems of women these days. Okay, so enough about who Cassie J is. So she's directed the movie The Red Pill, and so they were going to screen this all over the world. I think they started with America, then they sort of expanded to say Germany, Australia, and yeah, as I said, with Australia, one of the places they were going to screen it is in Melbourne. So I think this was Kino Cinema. So I think it's one of the Palace Cinema ones. It's in the city. Can't remember where. I think it's Lonsdale Street. I think it's Lonsdale Street. My memory of Melbourne's always awesome. Although I live in Sydney now. Been there for the last 18 years anyway, so I know my way around Melbourne. So I think it's Lonsdale Street. So a whole bunch of feminists decide to go to change.org, write a petition to ban the screening of the Red Pill movie in Melbourne. And they were saying it was some misogynistic crap, and they said, "Oh, it hates on women," blah blah blah. So they sort of use their typical buzzword excuses, all in the name of social justice or feminism, and they were successful. They did pull to Palace Cinemas pulled the movie out of the screenings. I think it's going to be screened November the 6th. So it's week after next. No, it's next end of next week. End of next week. So it's Sunday week. I'll just sort of I don't want to. I'm not here to be angry at it. I'm just here to sort of give my logical, rational viewpoints of the situation. I've sort of had a read after the past week or so, just trying to understand the situation. And sort of I'll just talk about my main talking points about this. So the first talking point is that I think by doing this, the feminists have kind of proved their point. They've proved a point that's been simmering there for years or a couple of decades. And that's the whole idea of the fact that they were never there for equality. Feminism right now, as of 20 years ago, right, was never a movement of equality. Well, even when it first started. Feminism was never a move for gender equality. They're using this guise of gender equality to push for women's rights because they knew historically that men had men were sort of superior in opportunity. So men had more opportunities than women. So historically that was how it was. And it was understandable that we had a movement to push for women's rights. But the problem is now that so this is an issue that I have with modern feminists because with moderate feminists. I believe that with radical feminists, they're at least honest with what they're doing. You know from the outset what they're like. They're gonna bash on men. They're going to be vindictive, hateful. I'll just use Marlowe's words. It's vindictive, hateful. It's lesbianic, man hatred. At least these radical feminists are very honest about it. But it's what we have a massive problem with is all the moderate feminists who actually buy into this. And this is where sort of MGTOW comes from because the radical feminists have brainwashed, let's say, 99% of these women, right? Although I think a lot of women are starting to wise up, but these radical feminists have put into the brains of not just moderate feminists, right, but just many women around the world that around most Western societies that what feminism is for the good of women, which is completely false. So as I said, this whole thing was never about equality, and this is sort of a litmus test that I use now. I sort of ask all feminists, male or female, God, male feminists, why do we even have them? Okay, so there's a question that I ask to all feminists, male or female, and the question is this, and any feminist that does comment here, do let me know your answer, please. I just want to know what's out there. So the question is this. So suppose you are a feminist and you promote gender equality, okay? So you're of the belief that men are superior than women, or men have more opportunities than women. Now suppose we flip the script. So suppose that women were now more dominant than men in many facets. So women had more opportunities in the workplace or in the school, or women are far more likely to graduate college or university or graduate high school. So suppose women had it better than men. Would you then advocate for men's rights? Would you say, hey, we know that we are now far superior, women are now far superior than men. Let's now push for gender equality for men. Would you do that? Would you be in support of that? Yes or no? And I think for feminists, I just want a yes or no answer. I don't want your reasons. I just want whether you would support men's rights if women were superior to men. If your answer is yes, then either A, you're bullshitting, which is sort of my assumption, or B, maybe you do believe in gender equality. Now, if your answer is no, and this is sort of what I get with most feminists, they're not, I won't say no directly, but they're not open to it. Let's say they're not, how do I put it? They're not, sorry, let's say they're not so fond of it. Okay, they're not so fond of that idea. But anything along the lines of no, then all I can say is I've given you your answer. You've just shown us, you've just shown everybody what's there. Because you said that feminism, or at least you are a feminist and you support gender equality. But if you can't support men when they're oppressed, and you only support women when they're oppressed, is that gender equality? Not in my eyes. At least not in my eyes. So this is why I believe that modern feminism actually, well, the threat to modern feminism is not from the radical feminists, it's actually from the moderate feminists, because they are far more unpredictable. Because at least with radical feminists, you're very honest about it. Okay, you're very, very honest about it, and whereas with moderate feminists, you're sort of, you don't know where they're siding with, and especially with women, you got to be careful with women. They may say one thing and do another. They're masters of hypocrisy. They've got a PhD in it. They're probably doing a postdoc in it already. Okay, so be very, very careful. And I think the threat to feminism, or the threat to gender equality, doesn't actually come from the radicals as much as it does from the moderates. And this is why I keep saying feminism is just cancer that needs to die. It just needs to die eventually. It needs to die a swift death. It's one of those cancers that it just needs to spread fast and go to shits quickly. Because we can't be living in denial for the next 5 years. The future of this generation is going to be dictated by what happens by 2020. That's in my opinion, at least. And this sort of brings me to my next point, right? Which is an issue of free speech and freedom of expression. Okay? Now, I am not going to take sides as to whether women have it worse or men have it worse. Although my belief is that men do have it worse, more so. But as I said, I'm going to try to be impartial here. Okay? For the sake of this debate, just for the sake of making this point. So, I think the idea is that we allow women a platform for them to explain their issues, and for society to, how do I put it, to deal with their issues through the feminist movement. So we at least give them a platform for freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Although I think we've taken it too far now. There is a bit of hate in there. However, when we start flipping the scripts, so men also have issues. I think this is the thing we need to understand. Both men and women have issues. There are things to celebrate about being either gender. There are things to, as in there are issues that need to be dealt with being either gender. So just know there's always going to be advantages and disadvantages. I think the feminist narrative is that women, there's only issues with being a woman, and there's just so many good things about being a man, this, that. But what they don't realize is that there's another side of the coin, right? Now, what is happening, and what this event, so what canceling the Red Pill movie screening shows, is that I think feminists are not prepared to deal with the other side of the coin. Not deal with, but even just hear it. I think this is why I've been doing a bit of research into sort of the feminist issue and how they are very authoritarian in their bid to silence anybody who would dare oppose it. It's becoming a highly authoritarian movement. Likewise with radical Islam, but that's an issue to be dealt with outside this channel. So this whole idea of shutting people up who just want to speak the other side of the opinion. Again, just proves a point regarding the whole feminist movement. Again, first of all, it was never about equality. Second of all, they just don't know how to deal with opposing viewpoints. So the whole idea of free speech is that we give a platform for everybody to give opinions backed by facts, stats, rational logic, reason. Okay, so we give everybody free speech. Now, as I said, we've given women a platform for free speech. And all this event has shown is that they don't want to give a platform for the other side, for men's rights. And it's ironic as well because this movie was directed by a feminist. And if I'm not mistaken, I haven't watched it, but from what I've heard, at least the first third of the movie were interviews by feminists. You know? So this movie really is an expository look at both sides of the coin, the feminist movement and the men's rights movement. Right? I don't know if you have another name other than men's rights. I guess it doesn't. Meninism doesn't really make much sense, but masculinism, I don't know. We could probably come up with one soon. But yeah, as I said, so we've got this feminist movement and the men's rights movement, and in the Red movie, they actually expose both sides. Not exposed, but yeah, expose both sides in the sense that we got interviews from feminists, you get interviews from MRAs, just so people can get a different look at this. And I guess it's not a one-sided thing. There are both sides of the coin that's being expressed. And just the problem is just that feminists just don't want to hear this other side of the debate. Right? They're limiting the They're limiting the free speech part. Now, I do understand that the Australian Constitution does not have provisos for free speech, so there is technically no free speech in this country. But at the end of the day, it's a basic human right, the ability to express yourself. Now, I'm just trying to look up UN. So I'm just trying to look up UN human rights. Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So Australia is part of the cancerous organization that we do call the UN, United Nations. And if I'm not mistaken, a basic human right in... Sorry, I'm just reading something. Yeah, so sort of a basic... So in 1948, the UN, God help them, please let them die. God, please let them die. So in 1948, they made a charter of human rights. They're called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And if I am just trying to find the right article, I'm just trying to, here it is. Article 18 and Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Right? This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others and in public or private. The rest is really relevant. And Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. So the fact that we have this UN charter that tells us what basic human rights are. So even though the Australian Constitution doesn't have free speech, although in America, First Amendment covers that in a way, right? You can't make laws against freedom of speech, freedom of religion, blah blah blah. The idea that we allow this whole idea that feminists are doing everything to silence the other side of the coin goes against a person's basic human rights. They should understand it. So I'll ignore what I was going to say next because I don't think it's the right way to say it. Okay. So as I said, with this thing, I just learned that the feminists have just proved that they are not only against gender equality, right? They're always about female supremacy. That is what it is. And they're just this highly authoritarian movement which seeks to, let's say, silence any dissent, any form of dissent. Even in this case, even if in this case it's just a form, in the form of, say, I don't know, this is just in the form of a feminist, one of their own, giving an expository look at both sides of the coin. They still want to silence that because there are points that don't fit their narrative. And this is the thing that the left does the best. They do it the absolute best. They silence anything they don't agree with because it doesn't make them feel good, and they're allowed to get away with it because the left will just, or the government, the liberal government will always just benefit them. They'll pander to them. They'll pander to their emotions and feelings. Okay. So yeah, I sort of want to digress from that now. I just wanted to sort of make a couple of points regarding that. So I'll probably finish off this video. So I want to make a future video. Okay. And this future video, I want to sort of look at the philosophy of Ayn Rand and how we can actually use that to, how we can apply that to principles in MGTOW. And this is very interesting, okay, because so if you're not familiar with the philosophy of Ayn Rand, which is called Objectivism, the basics of it is that, well, I'll just sort of lather the key points here. So the key point is that Ayn Rand always stresses the power of individualism, the idea of living for yourself, the idea that you have your own, you decide your own free will. Okay, the individual is the basic moral building block, and in the previous video I did talk about individual morality, which is sort of a very key point in Ayn Rand's philosophy. So I do sort of want to look more into this, but I do want to just give a quick preview, sort of based on what I've read and listened to. So I'm gonna just mainly source a guy called Yaron Brook. Okay, if you haven't heard of him, Yaron Brook, Yaron Brook. He is currently the managing director or the head of the Ayn Rand Institute right now. And his seminars, his talks, especially the recent ones, although they have a more economic nature, a financial economic nature, but the whole idea of this individualistic viewpoint of philosophy does ring very closely to what MGTOW is about. Then the idea of MGTOW is a process of self-actualization. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly run out to Reddit. Reddit, by the way, is sort of one of my least favorite places now. So I'm just reading. Okay, so that's the MGTOW. But I just want to see what MGTOW has on the. No, that's not. Yeah. Okay, by the way, with the Red Pill movie stuff, the word is that there will be another place where they will screen the movie. So they're looking for a place with a projector and about 90 to 100 seats. So if you know anybody that has a place that allows, or they have found a new venue, so they've done this. They've done this. Okay, yeah. So they have found a venue apparently, and yeah, they'll. So it's not in Keno. It's still in the CBD, fortunately. Obviously, they can't say where. Yeah. Okay. So they'll SMS the location 6 hours prior to screening. Okay. So don't worry. They found a place. Very good. Great that they're going ahead with this. I think they deserve to at least have an opinion on this stuff. The men's rights movements. Okay, so I'm just going to. I don't even know what. Okay, but okay. So just going back to the objectivist part, the stuff that I was talking about. So what I am trying to say here is that. Sorry, now I'm distracted by Reddit. Reddit is now a cesspit. I've tried to avoid Reddit. Okay, let me try to avoid Reddit. I'll just go back to Facebook. No, that's still cancer. So I'm just going to pull up objectivism. Yeah, so as I said, objectivism, as I said, is a movement where what do you call it? So the individual is always the moral building block. Okay. So the whole idea of living for yourself as a MGTOW. So MGTOW is a process of self-actualization, right? The process of finding out who you are, how you behave, and how you think. These kind of questions, just the simple questions, simple self-reflection questions. Okay? It's just a process of finding out who you are, live for yourself, do the things that benefit your self-interest. So I guess the idea of doing everything on your own terms. But as I said, I think the word Yaron Brock used is you pursue your own rational self-interest. Okay, what we mean by that is when you undertake a certain action, ideally you want to do something that gives benefit to you. If that comes at a cost of somebody else, obviously we have to say so be it. But in general, we don't undertake an action between two parties will never happen unless there is a benefit to both parties. So I guess the best example I can use is sort of let's just say buying an iPhone. Okay, I guess that's the one that Jaron Brook uses. When you buy an iPhone, right? So when I buy an iPhone, I value the iPhone more, right? So what I am getting, so what I am pursuing my rational self-interest by trying to buy the iPhone, whereas the where I get it from, say the Apple Store, right? They want my money. Now, are they taking it by force? No, because they are making something that I want. I want an iPhone, and they make iPhones. So we can come to a mutually beneficial agreement, and it benefits both our rational self-interest. Like I want an iPhone, so it benefits my rational self-interest, and they get my money. Again, that benefits their rational self-interest. Okay. Now I sort of see the whole dating idea is a zero-sum game. Right. Nowadays. But that's sort of an issue for another day. But the whole I want to focus less on the whole talk of women, but rather the idea of just living for yourself, doing things on your own terms. This is sort of what I really want to talk about when I do talk about objectivism and how it relates to MGTOW. Just the idea of sort of being free to pursue your rational self-interest without, and the good thing about this is and especially it's evident in Yaron Brook's videos, is the idea that there is no force on you to undertake certain actions. So you don't need to live a life of self-sacrifice. And I think the mere idea that you live a life of self-sacrifice is very immoral, at least according to Yaron Brook. Okay, because you are not doing anything to benefit yourself. So I think that's sort of something we can talk about later on. Okay, so I'm gonna cut it here because it's getting towards bedtime. I have work tomorrow, and yeah, look out for some of the videos that I'm gonna make on objectivism because I think it's a nice alternative look. Obviously, you won't get this in mainstream society. They have a certain dislike towards Ayn Rand, but I think just watching just seeing what the Ayn Rand Institute does and what Yaron Brook, what Yaron Brook kind of preaches, but he's trying to talk the way he presents his views, not just the way, but what views he presents. It's really interesting, and it really resonates with the whole principles of MGTOW. Okay, so as I said, look out for that. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, I probably have said this. Thank you for getting me to 500 views. Right now, when I do these things, I'm more concerned about getting the views as opposed to subscribers. I think once you start getting a good rate of views, then you can start worrying about subscribers. Okay? So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. MGTOW.